And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekday Warriors of Wrestling. If you don't know us, I'm Erik Clancy alongside Patrick Kelley. This is our first show on YouTube. We have been doing this for, 16 years now, Patrick?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, 2004 for the Wrestling Epicenter, the interactive interview. Then we did our blog talk radio show since 2009, and we are now moving to YouTube for the first time. So, if you don't know us, hopefully you'll get to know us. We talk WWE, we talk AEW, we talk New Japan, we talk Ring of Honor. We pretty much talk everything. So we'll be here on weekdays posting shows, hopefully very fairly frequently. And yeah, so let's get into it. Like I said, I'm Erik Clancy. Patrick Kelley is my co-host, and we're going to talk about the happenings of pro wrestling. So why don't we start with the big news last week, Patrick, and that was that WWE performers can no longer utilize third-party apps to to make money for themselves. Independent contractors.
Exactly. And it's another one of those cases where the relationship between WWE management and ownership and the performers there's huge incongruencies there. And it comes down to, it's like, okay, are they truly independent contractors or are they employees? And if they are employees, then why don't they get the benefits of employees? So basically, if you want to be a professional wrestler that works for the WWE, it's not the greatest gig in the world unless you're a top level superstar and can pay for everything yourself. So yeah, whenever something like this happens, it's really disappointing. You can't help but feel bad for the guys and girls that work for the company.
Yeah, well, you look at what they're doing, and there's like people out there who are saying things like, this is no different than what Disney does. Disney protects intellectual properties like Mickey Mouse. I'm like, that's not a fair comparison because Mickey Mouse isn't a sentient entity that can go work for another company. The better idea or comparison rather is that Robert Downey Jr. can go film other movies. Sure, he works for Marvel and Disney and is a major part of the Avengers films, but he's able to go do things and he's able to earn a living for himself. WWE superstars, in theory, if they are truly independent contractors, and that's a wage and labor discussion that many people have had, and I hope that it continues to be had on a political level. They should be, if they are independent contractors, able to profit off themselves as performers. Now, the iffy situation comes in is if they're using their names, and I know in the letter that WWE sent out to everyone, it was, we own your real names too, which is fucking insane. Like, that's fucking stupid. And then apparently they backtracked very quickly and they sent out something. They sent it to PW Insider and they were like, well, we are we're just they can't monetize being a performer that's WWE IP. To which point I'm sure, like, Paige changed her name to like Soraya Knight on Twitch, and like I'm sure Lana would be like CJ Perry or whatever. And if they let them do that, that should be fine. But I'm guaranteeing that's not the problem. The problem is they're doing it. The problem is they're making money outside of WWE. And WWE doesn't like that because they want to be able to control them. They want to be able to financially control them. So this is like pretty hilarious. And I've had people say, well, AEW, they're independent contractors too. I'm like, yes, but AEW's rule is you can't work on another company who has TV, and you can't work and you can't work on the night that AEW has shows. That's it. But you can work other places. You can wrestle other places if you want. If you want to go to do a convention, you can do a convention. I would argue AEW has true independent contractors. I mean, they utilize them when they're able, but when they're not required to be part of it, they can go and do their own thing. So I don't think it's apples to oranges with AEW because AEW is, I think, so much less controlling over their talent.
Yeah, and the schedule for AEW is far less demanding as well. That's the other part of that, where they're not working house shows every other night or anything like that. Well, given the pandemic.
Yeah,
I think that's
no
probably
one is COVID.
But yeah, WWE, they exert so much control over their talents, and it's a far cry from what it was like in the old territory days, where you could pretty much just have a 6-month run somewhere, then go off somewhere else and pretty much do whatever you wanted. And WWE, ever since it became like the national global identity that it is right now, they've just exerted so much control over their wrestlers. I even remember when Undertaker tried to do StarCast, and Vince had a huge problem with that. And I just can't
You mean when
understand.
Undertaker said he didn't know it was running next to AEW?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, I didn't know, Vince. I didn't know this huge thing was happening. Yeah.
But even if he did know, it's like, dude, it's just a convention. I mean, who cares? It's
I'll tell you who cares, pal.
Vincent Kennedy McMahon cares.
Yeah, and I mean, like it's like you look at this, and it's like, this is what they do. They've done this for a while. They like to, keep them under their thumb. And you talk about the schedule, and the COVID obviously has trounced any aspect of a schedule. But even with that, like there are a lot of guys that aren't Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns and AJ Styles that aren't making a ton of money every day, and they're not being used on every show. They used to have house shows where they could do multiple things. They could learn about working in front of a live crowd. They could sell merch, and they can get a cut of the house. They can't do that anymore. So they need income sources. And, WWE is like, we're trying to reinvent our brand. You're not trying to reinvent the brand. Like, I stopped watching WWE on a consistent basis. I mean, I hate watched it for years, but I stopped watching it in October after the Fox thing because, and I mentioned this on one of our previous shows, but since we're on YouTube now, we may have new people listening. I'll recount it. I went into that saying, Fox is saying that there's going to be under Fox Sports. They're going to present this a little differently. I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is the opportunity with big money like Fox, and they're going to alter their presentation. Because the problem with WWE has never been the talent. It's never been the money. It's the production. It's been the presentation of the product. It's phony. It's canned. It's sterile. It's lifeless. It just comes off as hokey. And I watched this show, and I'm like hoping to see something new. And of course, Vince and Stephanie open it up because that's like, they do that in every big show. And then you have The Rock and Becky, and they do like silly, like, venereal diseases jokes about Baron Corbin. They beat him up. And I was like, so it's a WWE show. It's the same show that it's always been. It will never fucking change ever. I don't care like what happens. Like even with AEW coming out, unless it's like, they're beating the main shows down and they're just dead, it's not going to change because it's not like when Vince was 45 and he's like, I got to change. I got to do this. Like there's no way he's changing now. And, WWE, what the hell was I talking about? What did this have to do with anything?
The third party element and them having control over their workers.
Oh God, I don't even know where I was going with that, but they're controlling.
Pulled an Eric Bischoff on that one.
Yeah, they're controlling and they're the worst. How about that? That's it. Yeah. And one thing we didn't talk about, I don't know if you saw this, Patrick, but Andrew Yang tweeted.
I did see this. Yes.
He went on a long string of tweets about how he's going to have the ear of the Secretary of Labor and he's coming for WWE. And I thought that was hilarious and amazing. And I hope it happens because, I mean, the stuff they get away with these guys is with exploiting these wrestlers. I mean, they're like, yeah, we pay. It allows us to pay such high amounts. I'm like, yes, but if you look at WWE and you look at their balance sheets and you look at where their profit and expenditures are, such a small amount goes to paying talent. It's like so small. And the fact is, when AEW came along, they started having to pay more. And even that was like detrimental to them. So like, yeah, they pay, but they don't pay their fair share to talents. They don't pay what they're worth. And it's because of lack of competition. That's why I've supported AEW from the start, because competition is good. But
I've said it ever since it happened. And even though the show became garbage in its dying years, the worst thing that ever happened to pro wrestling was the death of WCW. That was absolutely the worst thing that ever happened to pro wrestling. And Vince has pretty much been running unopposed, minus some blips on the radar like TNA. I mean, they've been running unopposed ever since. And AEW was a welcome breath of fresh air.
Yeah, well, AEW was a company that wasn't run by crazy people, and its name wasn't tits and ass. Like, I mean, I've said it before. I watched TNA and I enjoyed it, like at various points in its thing. But like, for those of you who don't know me, I'm a copywriter at an ad agency in Manhattan. If I'm a wrestling fan, if somebody walked in and said like, "We're gonna sponsor TNA Wrestling," I would say that's the fucking dumbest name on the planet. Like there's nothing they could have done with that name. Like I think they were hamstrung from the start. Nobody on any mainstream level was going to take them seriously with that name. I've said that time and time again. They could have the best booking in the world. They didn't, but they could have had the best booking in the world, and it wouldn't have mattered because their name was Tits and Ass.
It was very short-sighted. It was kind of like a dime smart, dollar dumb deal where they went with that name initially because they were, a weekly show on pay-per-view. And I think in their minds, they thought if it sounds dirty, we'll get that horny teenage crowd to even order it accidentally. We can like trick people. But then once you start trying to grow, it hampers you from growing when you have a dumb name like that.
Yeah, and you were the one who said the initial reason was because they thought people would confuse it with porn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on. Next topic. Let's talk about AEW All Out. Now, there's a big aspect of All Out that we have to talk about, but we are going to run through the show here.
Okay.
Patrick, overall, after seeing the show, what did you think of it? Give me your overall take on the show.
Well, we're going to talk about the big thing later. What I will say, overall impression, that big thing that happened that we're going to talk about separately, unfortunately, kind of took the wind out of the sails of the show, and it felt like they spent the rest of the show trying to recover. I didn't completely hate it, but I think it's by far the weakest pay-per-view outing that AEW's had to date. And I don't know exactly what it was or if it was just that one really big thing that took the wind out of the sails, but for whatever reason, it just didn't get on track.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think it's probably AEW's worst show. I did not think it was a bad show. But I thought it was fine. But I absolutely felt it was the worst show that they've done. I felt I either liked Revolution or Double or Nothing 2019, which I was at the best. Mm-hmm. And then like All Out, Full Gear, and Double or Nothing 2, I think were like the next tier. I thought those were all amazing too. But this was by far a notch below. So I agree with you on that. Let's go through the matches here. We had 2 dark matches. We had Joey Janela beating Serpentico. Do you even want to talk about this? Like it was a match that happened.
They were like standard pre-show matches. I didn't really feel one way or the other about them. They happened. They filled time on the pre-show, kind of warmed people up, and that's pretty much all they were.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to talk about the Private Party Dark Order thing either. Let's get to the actual show. So, we had the Tooth and Nail match, which turned out to be like a semi-cinematic match. Kind of, not really, because it was like...
More like an Attitude Era brawl.
Yeah, I would say that. And it was Big Swole and Britt Baker, which had been one of the best feuds in the company so far. Like they've done really well with that. I think Britt is a great heel, and I think Swole is like kind of finding herself. So I thought this could be really good. I didn't know what a Tooth and Nail match was, and I don't know if I missed it. They didn't do a good job explaining of what it was before the show. We found out it was just a match that took place in Britt's dental office. And I was not like, I didn't think it was very good. I thought there was some things that they could have done that could have been funny or interesting and stuff, but it came off a little bit like hokey to me, a little cheesy. I thought the finish with using the like the knockout gas was like clever, but it wasn't enough to get over that the match just came off as like jokey and weird to me.
This was a very weird match to start with too, because it's not in the arena, and AEW, they've started like having some fans. I think the building was like 15% capacity. I think something along those lines.
Yeah, like
and when you're thinking of a pay-per-view opener, you want to start hot. You want to start with something athletic, nothing too big storyline wise or a big grudge match, but you want to start with like a simple athletic hot match to get everybody riled up and get the show off on the right foot. And to start the show with a match that's not even in the arena, that, I don't know, it just felt a little deflating. I mean, if I were putting the matches together, I probably would have put this one right before I thought they were going to do this, put it right in front of the Mimosa Mayhem match. So while this match is playing on the screen, they could set up all the VATs and everything. So I thought that's what they were going to do. But very odd choice for an opener, I'll say. And again, I love Britt Baker as a heel. I think she's been great. If she could avoid getting injured, I think she could be like the best part of the women's division. But I don't know. I'm kind of with you. The match was just a little off. It's something about it didn't work. At least it wasn't half an hour long. I'll give them that.
Yeah, we talk about that later. So it's what we talked about next. You should have a match that gets the crowd hot and is athletic and fun and well-paced, and that's what we had next, because that was the Young Bucks and Jurassic Express, which I thought was the second best match of the night. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought I liked the kind of darker edge the Young Bucks showed. For those people that haven't been watching the show, the Bucks have been kind of like kind of tweeners. I mean, faces, but still kind of tweeners. But they've been kind of like dicks to Adam Page, at least from my perspective. And they're like taking no shit, and they're mad that they've never won the tag titles, and they're like, just being serious, kind of like superstars. And I thought this was great. I thought it had a kind of cool point of view. This match did. I loved Marco Stunt getting his face kicked off. I thought that was like awesome and hilarious. I thought Jungle Boy came off like as big of a star as he has so far. I thought he looked great. I think Luchasaurus is looking like he's getting a lot of that snap and that energy back that he had before he got injured in like, January or December or whenever it was. I can't remember. Sometime last year. And I thought this match was great. I thought it told a story. I thought it was fun. It was exciting, and this should have been the opener. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. This is the type of match you want to open a show, and like it ticks all the boxes, and it was absolutely perfect for what it was. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but with what happened with Omega later in the show and what Cody's going to be doing later on whenever he gets back, it makes me wonder, are they setting up like a full-on the Elite turns heel? And that could be really interesting if they decide to go down that road. Yeah.
Next we have the 21-man casino battle royal. So one thing, I'm going to skip to the end here before we go through this thing. One thing I did like about this, they had Lance Archer win it.
Yes.
And in a lot of the pre-show hype, they talked about like, the big guy has the advantage. The biggest guy always has the advantage in this battle royal. And if you've watched WWE, I'm not talking pro wrestling, because pro wrestling, they would do this. In like territory days, they would do this kind of stuff.
Andre the Giant, he was king of the battle royals.
Yeah, Andre would always win them. Ernie Ladd would win them. Like for the most part, you'd have your big guys like do that. It would be like a bit for them. WWE like never does that. Like, I mean, maybe occasionally like in 2004 in like the spring, Kane wins a battle royal to challenge Benoit or something like that, but they never do that. And they always try to set up that trope. Like they'll be like, oh, here comes the Big Show. He's got a huge chance to win, even though he always gets eliminated really early on. And nobody's surprised or cares about it. It's like the same way. Do you remember how for like 20 years nobody ever won from 30, and they're like, oh, if you have the 30 spot, you have the best chance of winning, but nobody ever did. And then they got embarrassed because they realized that. So then they had 2 people win at 30 2 years in a row because they were like, fuck, we're idiots and this is stupid. Well, AEW isn't stupid, and they had a great idea. They're like, hey, let's have this giant psychopath guy win the battle royal, so the next time we say, man, big guys are really good in battle royal, people will say, hey, they're not full of shit because that big guy won a battle royal. You have to show your work. You actually have to do things. You can't just say it and be lazy and never have to have it happen. So I like that they did that. That was great.
Yes, I was very happy to see Archer win, and the idea of a Archer-Moxley match in AEW really excites me because they did some really good stuff in New Japan.
Yeah, they had that great. They were at the Dome, right? Because it was it was Juice and Archer, and then it was Archer and Moxley, right?
I think was it Archer and Moxley first? I don't know. They did it one of the 2 nights, and it was great. Yeah.
So we had this. We had Trent. We had Christopher Daniels. We had Jake Hager. We had Blade, we had Phoenix, Frankie Kazarian, Will Hobbs, who had a pretty cool showing. We had Chuck Taylor, Santana, Ortiz, Billy Gunn, who, like, holy shit, like, take Billy Gunn out of these matches because, first of all, he has no stamina, and second of all, because Billy Gunn is secretly a giant, but nobody thinks of him that way. Like, Billy Gunn's like 6'6", I think. Like, I think he's a legit 6'6". If you go back and you watch, like, the Outlaws versus Kane and X-Pac, Billy Gunn's like kind of Kane's height. So, like, Billy Gunn's fucking big, but nobody thinks he's big. So when you have him in there with all your stars and he looks like a giant Andre the Giant hulking individual, it just makes everybody look stupid. So stop putting Billy Gunn in these battle royals. It's a bad idea and it makes everybody look dumb.
To build on that, I saw Billy Gunn at AwesomeCon last year. It was him and Sergeant Slaughter that were special guests doing autographs. And Billy Gunn was absolutely humongous.
Is he taller than I am?
Yes.
Oh, man. Okay.
He's a big boy.
Yeah. All right, so Penta L0 M, Pentagon Jr., Ricky Starks, Brian Cage, Darby Allin, Sean Spears, Eddie Kingston, Butcher, Sonny Kiss, Lance Archer, and let's not forget, Patrick, Shockmaster Matt Seidel.
Oh, I felt so bad for him. That's, unfortunate. First spot of an AEW debut. And granted, when he came out at the Joker spot, I was like, okay, it's kind of not what I was hoping for. I was kind of hoping for like Rusev or somebody a little bit bigger on the totem pole. But it's like, all right, let's see what he can do. Seidel's not a bad talent. And then he comes out and slips on the Shooting Star Press, which I don't think I've ever seen him botch before. And it's like, oh, no.
This was the night, right?
Yep. All times to do it. You do it now. It's like, oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, he was, and from what I understand, like, it could have been the humidity because, like, people were tweeting and they're like, we're really not trying to be a bad crowd. It's just so freaking humid. That said, there was like 800 fuck-ups in this match that took me out of it. Like, Cage, like, super kicked Will Hobbs and he barely touched him, and then Will Hobbs sold it anyway. There was, like, all sorts of, like, weird stuff on the apron where people were like, it just looked fake as shit.
The Jake Roberts spot for the finish, that one felt like an anticlimax because it's like, all right, if he's going to be carrying a bag out there, I want to see the snake, and they never showed us the snake. So that felt like...
My wife was asking because she doesn't, like, know who Jake Roberts is or anything, and she's like, what is he doing? And I'm like, well, he's got a snake in that bag. And she's like, so why is he rubbing the bag on the guy's face? I'm like, I don't know, because it's fucking stupid. I don't know. What do you want me to say?
Yeah, it makes me think there was no snake in there, and they were just doing carny shit.
Well, good, because Jake has killed his snakes before, so we probably shouldn't be allowed to have them.
Fair point.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was, like, a ton of things that took me out of this. There were some things I liked. I liked Sonny Kiss eliminating Jake Hager. I thought that was cool. I liked how the Inner Circle, like, pretty much stuck together. I always think that's smart because WWE, they don't do that a lot because Vince is really weird about it. Like, if anyone here has ever, like, listened to Vince do commentary on like old Royal Rumbles and stuff, he'll be like, Demolition, Axe, and Smash are going to be in the Royal Rumble, but they're going to be every man for themselves. In Vince's mind, what that means is you cannot team up. Even though you could, in real life, if Patrick and I were a tag team and we were in a Royal Rumble, Patrick and I would be normal and we would say, hey, let's team up until it's just you and me at the end, and then we can see who wins, so we'll guarantee one of us goes. But in Vince's world, it's like, no, it's every man for himself. You can't team up, even for a little bit. And I know they do that. I know they have, like Legacy did it that one year, but for the most part, like, people will start fighting like midway through for no reason, just because they're fucking stupid, and Vince probably, like, nixes all those spots.
Probably, yeah. Although, let's be honest, if you and I were in a battle royal together, we would go all the way to the end, and then I would low blow you and throw you out. That's what would happen.
I would be diving over the top rope to escape.
Yeah, the Randy Savage spot.
Yeah. I was thinking Jannetty, but that's good too.
That's another one. No Mascaras, 97.
Yeah, no yob. So yeah, I didn't think this match needed thumbtacks. I didn't think it needed Darby Allin powerbombed in a freaking body bag. Like, just have a battle royal, guys. Like, you don't have to kill yourselves. It's okay. Like, it's a battle royal. We're just kind of excited to see who's coming next. Also, You want to hear what my wife did not like at all about it? She did not like that you did not know their suits until after everyone was in the ring. She's like, well, what did they draw? I'm like, I don't know. They'll tell you in a bit. She's like, well, that defeats the purpose of the stupid casino thing. I'm like, okay, yeah. AEW fucking loves casino things. What do you want me to tell you?
That's actually a fair point. But yeah, going back to the Darby Allin thing, it kind of reminds me of Abyss in TNA, where he just got into this habit. It was like, all right, every single one of my matches needs thumbtacks. Every single one of my matches needs barbed wire. And then it got to a point where he did the hardcore stuff so much that it's like, all right, I need a board with nails in it because everybody's seen me do everything. And it's like,
gun.
If you only did it twice a year, it would be more special. I'm just saying.
I need a gun. I'm going to shoot you and kill you.
There are no rules, as they say.
Yeah, I'll murder you. All right, so next was everyone's favorite match. That apparently went 9 minutes, but in my head and watching it, it went 72,000 minutes. It was Matt Hardy beating Sammy Guevara in what's hilariously being called a broken rules match. Because, and if you haven't heard, Matt Hardy took a spear off of a scissor lift and cleared a table and didn't really go through it and slapped his head on the concrete. And then was concussed and kind of knocked out. And by kind of, I mean he was knocked out and he couldn't get to his feet. And they called the match and Aubrey did the X sign. And then they went to the announcers awkwardly. But then they rang the bell and then they continued the match. And they went to the finish and Sammy got pushed off of a structure onto a crash pad and Matt Hardy beat him. I don't know anyone who thinks that they shouldn't have stopped this match. Nobody thinks that was a good idea.
What I'm trying to figure out is something happened in between because they did stop it. Aubrey threw up the X. They rang the bell. Match was over. I mean, Matt was clearly like, no, I can go, while stumbling all over himself.
Kept things like delete lines, Yeah,
I was like, dude, no, the decision-making should be out of your hands, dude. So I don't know what happened in between, but when they just randomly restarted it and I was like, oh, let's go into the finish. It's like, wait, why is he climbing up a structure after hitting his head? Please, no, don't do anything like this. And it goes back to that old school wrestling mindset that, the show must go on. And if you can go, you go. And it's like, I think in today's day and age, the safety of the wrestlers and the athletes needs to be paramount. And, if you ask a guy if he can go, he's going to tell you yes, because there is that competitive drive and that competitive spirit. And just like the idea that when something like that happens, you get pissed off that you're hurt and you just want to fight through it and show it's like, no, I'm not as hurt as you think I am, and that whole tough guy mentality. But I don't know what happened or what resulted in the match getting restarted or who made that call, or if Matt Hardy made the call and for whatever reason they let him do it, or if Tony Khan made the call or the doctor made the call. I don't know, but whatever it was the wrong call.
Yes, it definitely was the wrong call. Yeah, I mean, from what they're saying, Doc Samson cleared him, and they finished the match, and then Matt went to the hospital. They said he didn't have a concussion, and he passed his CT and MRI tests, which, I mean, they do not say if you have a concussion or not. They're used in concordance with it, but yeah, it just seems unfortunate. There are people going fucking nuts over this and Tony Khan lied and Rebby's saying all this stuff. And I'm like, well, Rebby's a crazy person. And
you don't want to piss her off. She's feisty.
Yeah. And it's just I mean, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. It shouldn't have happened, but let's use AEW should use what they've learned from this going forward to make sure stuff like this doesn't happen again, because I've seen other companies that I won't name, but we know who they are. I've seen other companies do shit and not learn from it and just do the same stuff for ever. So I'm willing to give AEW the benefit of the doubt because they've tried to improve. They've tried to get better. They've tried to things that the people don't like about them. They've tried to change. They've gotten rid of the Nightmare Collective. They've stopped having weird, awkward interference that the referee sees, but nobody gets DQ'd for because they don't want to do DQs. They improve when they say they're going to improve. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, but that was a extremely unfortunate situation. Seems like Matt's okay. I mean, maybe if you're 45, you probably stop having these matches or any matches. I mean, he was getting hurt in WWE when he wasn't even taking bumps, so it's probably not a good idea. But yeah, that's pretty
And
much all.
it looked like they were transitioning him into a manager role for Private Party or like a mentor role for them. It's like that might be the best way to go with him at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. All right. So then this is the part in the show where you felt everything else was trying to make up for that, and like they couldn't really.
You think the women's match went long because so much time was left over from Sammy and Matt? They said, "All right, you girls need to stretch because we've got some extra time here to fill."
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with you. Like this, Thunder Rosa and Sheeta could have been a perfectly good match, but I was like sapped. The crowd wasn't into it because of the humidity, and like the Matt Hardy thing had just happened. So like this, like I heard people say, well, hey, you know, people they're really like doing a good job, especially in these circumstances. I'm sure they were. I just like did not care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like I hate to bring the show up, but it's like Over the Edge where Jeff Hardy, or I'm sorry, Jeff Jarrett and Deborah and Val Venus and Nicole Bass had to go out there after what happened, and it's like, who the hell cares? Like, you just can't put your focus or your
it's
energy
not the
into
same.
it.
Somebody didn't die, but yes, it's a similar vein. I get you.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we had an 8-man tag match. It was Cody's friends against the Dark Order, and this I thought was fine. I like the idea of there's a lot of cool intricacies in the Dark Order. By the way, for those of you who haven't been listening to us for very long or at all, the Dark Order, I, like most people, hated them when they first came out and was one of the people chanting, "Who are you?" at Double or Nothing. Ever since Brody Lee has come in, I think they've really found themselves, and they're a lot more interesting, and Brody Lee is a compelling character to have fronting that group. And this was cool. I like the idea of like, you know, Colt Cabana's kind of been the favorite son, whereas like Uno and Grayson and any of the like lower members of the Dark Order get smacked around, and Colt is like kind of like he's protected. So I like the fact that he fucked up and that caused the loss. I thought that was good. I like how they set up Dustin and Brody for Dynamite. I thought this was good for what it was. Was it like a showmaker or anything? No, but I thought it like it made a lot of sense. It was fairly good. Yeah, I liked it. You know,
it was a perfect storyline development match. Obviously, we're going to get to a Cody Brody Lee 2 at some point, which, by the way, we didn't get a chance to talk about that match, but I absolutely loved how they booked that whole thing.
Too. Yeah,
it was basically like some people compared it to Lesnar Cena at SummerSlam.
Yeah,
I compared it. Yeah, that's a fair comparison, but in my mind, I was thinking like Nightfall, where Bane destroyed Batman after Batman had basically exhausted himself fighting everybody else. And just really well booked and executed. So this match was a nice follow-up to that, where Cody's friends all rally around and stick up for their buddy. And now we've got a TNT title match to look forward to this week because of it. So I was okay with this.
Yeah, and you know, like in 2014, my favorite two matches of the year was the combination of the Daniel Bryan Triple H and then the Daniel Bryan Triple Threat match at WrestleMania 30, and the John Cena Brock Lesnar match at SummerSlam. And like people are like, well, it was a squash match. How can you like that? And I'm like, yeah, it's a squash match with John Cena in the main event of a SummerSlam. Like, how do you not think that's insane and awesome? You know, like it was so different. Like, you know what I didn't want? A fucking back and forth, this is awesome thing where people trade near falls like I've seen in every other single match that's ever happened. I do want to see a guy who's never been touched, German suplexed 800 times, and look completely powerless next to this like Galactus level threat. That is cool. And that is different. And that's what I liked about Cody and Brody Lee. Was it on that level? Of course not. But it was cool. And I like Cody like has like beaten everybody for the entire summer, and Brody Lee came in just like ate his lunch, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool, I'll watch that.
Yeah, and I think that moment like put the Dark Order on the map. It's like, oh wow, they are a threat after all. Look at that.
Well, AEW is very good about protecting their talent. They know that like, okay, Brody Lee lost to Jon Moxley, he can't lose to Cody too, you know. And in the same vein, like, I mean, I don't think he's going to beat Moxley, but they got to be careful with Archer because Archer lost to Cody, and now he's going against Moxley. You got to be careful with these monsters because they can only suffer so many losses before they become Canes and Big Shows where nobody ever takes them seriously.
Yeah. And how do you think Anna Jay fits into the group?
Well, I don't want to say anything and get in trouble like JR did because I like her. I like her as like Brody Lee's kind of prized like siren and like the female leader. I don't know. It's see where it goes. It's interesting.
I think she's got some potential, and to keep it clean, I think she's got a great look too. So that helps.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, next was the tag team match for the AEW World Tag Team Championship. I was incredibly disappointed with this match. I thought it was fine, but fine was not what I was expecting for these two teams. I don't know if it was the crowd was so sapped out of it. I don't know what it was, but I thought it was okay.
It might have been the length, too. That might have been a problem as well because it went on for like half an hour. And
Yep.
It was probably one of those matches where there's a really good 15 to 20-minute match stretched out for 30. And, it had flashes of brilliance. I thought Hangman looked great in it, and he was kind of the star of the whole thing for me. But like you said, it was just something was missing, and I don't know exactly what it was.
Yeah. We do have new tag team champions. That's kind of cool.
That's great.
They treat the belt. Yeah, I love the Revival too. All right. So then we had Cassidy and Jericho, and this I thought was like a shocking finish. I did not think Jericho was going to lose, but I wonder if it was because of how poorly he put him over in the second match. Because Jericho like fucked up that finish because he's fat or whatever. I like Jericho. I just think he needs to either get in shape or stop wrestling. You know, like you're like fucking up finishes and shit.
Yeah.
But I thought this match was great. Not great. I'm sorry. I enjoyed this match. How about that? I thought I if I was Jericho, I would have sold. The going to the mimosa a little bit more. Like he's done humiliation a little bit better. But I like this. I think like a Big Show, they need to be careful with Orange Cassidy and they need to present him as a special attraction. Like I would have, if I was doing booking for AEW, I would have Cassidy like go back to being lax, go back to being like bored. Occasionally give him a squash match where he comes out and some guy's there and Cassidy never takes his hand out of his pockets and he just beats his brains out. And every once in a while, a threat like Jericho comes along and Cassidy gets passionate. I think that's really cool. I think you've got to be careful with it, though. It's not an everyday character.
Yes, absolutely. It's we've talked about it with Road Dogg. We've talked about it with Enzo Amore. If you put that act on TV every week and they do the same thing every week, Too Cool and Rikishi is another example, it gets old really, really quickly. And I think they've mostly done a pretty good job of protecting Orange, but now that he's got this big win over Jericho, I hope they don't think that, oh, well, he needs to be on TV every week now because he's a star and we need to be putting him in big matches all the time. And people love the act, so let's give him more. And I think with Orange, I think
him like Lesnar. More. Like
comedy Lesnar. Yeah, that's a good approach.
Yeah, well, it's not even like comedy because I mean, yeah, it's funny, I get it, but like, I mean, you brought up like Too Cool and Road Dogg and Enzo and stuff, and like, I mean, Enzo and NXT would kind of vary it up, but for the most part, those guys all did the same thing every single time, and it was like that was it. Like Too Cool danced, and they would do like the worm and stuff. Road Dogg did his intro. And and Enzo did his intro, and that was it. That was all they would do. Orange Cassidy's thing like can live, like doing moves lazily is really hard to do, and you can do that in a lot of different ways. But like you do have to be careful not to exhaust it because the imagination isn't limitless. So I do think they got to be careful. I do like Orange, and I thought this was. I thought this was cool. All right, so main event time. We had Moxley and MJF. I thought this was by far the match of the night. I thought Moxley does what he always does, and that's drive home runs in the bottom of the ninth. Crowd was into this in the same way the crowd was into Orange Cassidy and Jericho. Crowd was really into this. I thought MJF did a great job. There's this weird narrative going around that MJF is great on the mic, but he's a poor wrestler, and I don't know where that comes from.
He doesn't do moonsaults. That's what it is.
And he can, but like it doesn't make sense to do that. Like, first of all, I don't know why you'd have a heel doing that for the most part, and secondly, like why is like that's not his character. It doesn't make sense. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. But I thought this was great. I like the story of MJF saying like I'm not going to go out there, and then eventually becoming overconfident, and eventually Wardlow and his distraction tactics being his own downfall. I thought that was cool, and I like that Moxley used his move behind the ref's back. I thought that was great.
I think there's potential for more story there because now MJF has a legitimate claim to the title where he can say he got screwed based on the rules of the match. So I'm actually really interested to see how they follow.
No, they protected MJF, and I thought that was smart because in the same way they protected Cage and stuff, like Moxley cheated to beat MJF. He didn't beat him clean. I think that's kind of smart because I think MJF is still the guy of the future, but you just have to get him there. I think there's that obvious MJF Wardlow feud that's like percolating is fun, and that could be good for both guys. But yeah, so I thought the match really kind of helped the show go out on a high note. I would have liked some sort of surprise or something at the end because I think since Double or Nothing 2019, AEW's kind of done a poor job of having surprises at the end of the show. So I thought it was fine, but like you said, that kind of black mark in the middle of the show was like a major downer for me, and I think most people watching.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate, and I wouldn't want to be the one to have to make those decisions and to try and figure out, okay, how do we get past this? Because it's just, do we just barrel through? Do we, I don't know, do we just throw more filler out there? I don't know what you do to overcome something like that.
Yeah. All right, so why don't we go to I don't want to talk about AEW NXT ratings today. Let's go into a Roman Reigns heel turn. So for those of you who have not seen, Roman Reigns turned heel, and he did in the best way possible, without an audience, and after he revealed he had cancer. So there's that. Roman Reigns aligned himself with Paul Heyman and then signed a contract to face two people as he was walking to the ring to face them, and basically stole the title. So Roman Reigns is now the top heel. That's kind of cool in an aspect of it's different, but it kind of sucks that it took like 4 years after they should have done it. And it's also not in front of a crowd, so it's not like getting the mileage it could be getting. Because
do you not consider the Thunderdome a crowd?
I consider it. You know what? Like we shit on the Thunderdome, and we should because it's fucking hilarious. But like, I will say this: the Thunderdome is 100 times better than being in the Performance Center. I think AEW always did a better job with the wrestlers as fans, and AEW bringing in the actual fans has been pretty good. I mean, notwithstanding the All Out where they were really tired and couldn't do anything, but for the most part, I think they've done a good job. I think the Thunderdome is way better than the Performance Center. That said, I mean, like it's weird to have all the fake noise that doesn't correspond to what anyone's doing, but WWE wrestlers are all trained to like play to the crowd like endlessly, so their movements are now natural. They can like turn to the crowd and like do all these things that looked weird before because there was no one there. And like WWE's primary thing is like, hey, don't you want to see some wrestlers? So I don't mind the Thunderdome at the moment. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I don't like seeing Chris Benoit and like Klansmen there, but the Thunderdome with good edited content is an improvement from what I had been seeing.
That was actually my number one concern right off the bat. And a lot of people brought this up, but when they started doing it, it was like, somebody's going to troll that. Like, it's just an invitation for somebody to be a jerk. And sure enough, we've had
it's wrestling. So what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Roman's heel now.
Yeah.
I don't mind him with like if we're judging this in just like a vacuum, like I think with Heyman, it's good. I would have, I initially thought they were going to have Heyman turn on Lesnar at SummerSlam 2 years ago, and then go with Reigns. I thought that would have been great. Like, the idea is he didn't spray him with something. Like, remember, he's like, I have a note for you. And then he like whispered in his ear, and then he sprayed him with mace. And there was this thought process was he was like, we're going to be together. Like, we'll swerve him. Pretend I'm spraying you with something. And that could have been a cool twist, but they didn't do that. But now they're doing it. I think it works because they keep, I like when Heyman's with top guys. Like, remember when he was with Punk and Brock? And having Heyman like meant a big deal. But then they had like Curtis Axel and Ryback. And then after those guys, when Cesaro did it, it didn't mean as much. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate them keeping him with a top guy. But it's just like, I guess there's a problem with turning the Fiend face so quickly after like terrorizing Alexa Bliss and like being a monster that they're like.
Well, are her and Alexa Bliss like, or is the Fiend and Alexa Bliss, are they like a couple now? Is that what they're going for? Like, what's the deal there?
I don't know. If we do this show more regularly, I'll start to watch these a little bit more. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. He fought like Braun in the swamp. And also, I guess this has always been the case. I thought Bray Wyatt had like this screechy non-music music, but he does have a song. He has like the same song with a different singer.
Oh yeah, he's had that since his debut.
Then what was that like scary music that happened when he attacks people?
That's something else entirely.
Oh, I would just have him come after that.
See, that I guess that would work if he stayed heel, but if he's going face, maybe the song works better.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. What do you think of the Roman Reigns turn, Patrick?
I think it's, well, I didn't expect it, and I think it's an interesting move. I'm kind of with you. I wish they had done it a few years ago when the fever pitch hate against him was at its peak, and we had fans in attendance that could have reacted to it. But,
there were more fans watching on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
There was like 80% more or something.
Yeah, something crazy like that. And I think it's, I think creatively it's like a nice shift from the norm, and they went against what everybody would have expected them to do. And I didn't expect to have Roman back until we were fully past this whole COVID thing. So it's a nice surprise all around. I think it's more creatively interesting than if they just had Roman be the Roman that we knew before he disappeared.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's all for this week. So hopefully our YouTube debut goes well. I have to say this now, Patrick, because we're on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We need that now. That's a thing that people need to do. So we'd appreciate.
And hit the little bell icon so you get notified when we post new videos.
Yes, guys, don't forget about the bell icon. The bell icon is what you need to hit. Yeah, so don't forget to like and subscribe, but we are signing off. We are out of here.
Peace out, everybody.